What is this man doing? Is this behavior appropriate before Judge Caprio? You decide. Picture this scene. Leather creaking, engines rumbling, and a courtroom about to witness something nobody expected. The heavy oak doors swing open, and in walks Marcus Steele Rodriguez, president of the Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club. His presence fills the room like smoke from a Harley's exhaust pipe. Tattoos snake up both arms, telling stories of brotherhood, rebellion, and a life lived on the edge. The black leather vest bears patches that speak of decades riding the open road, and his steel-toed boots echo against the marble floor with each deliberate step. Judge Caprio looks up from his paperwork, taking in this imposing figure who seems more suited for a roadhouse than a courtroom. The gallery whispers as Marcus settles into his seat, his weathered hands folded across his chest, silver rings catching the fluorescent light. This isn't your typical defendant, and everyone in the room knows it. The charge reads simple enough on paper: reckless driving and endangering public safety. But the story beneath those words carries weight that extends far beyond a traffic violation. Marcus had been leading his club through downtown Providence when a family emergency call came through on his radio. His younger brother Tommy, a club prospect, had crashed his bike on the interstate. Without hesitation, Marcus gunned his engine and weaved through traffic at dangerous speeds, running red lights and cutting through crosswalks where pedestrians scattered like startled birds. When the clerk reads the charges aloud, Marcus doesn't flinch. He's faced worse than courtrooms in his 52 years. Gang wars, prison sentences, and losing brothers to violence and addiction. This feels like small stakes compared to the battles he's fought on the streets. But Judge Caprio has a way of making even the toughest men reconsider their perspective. "Mr. Rodriguez," the judge begins, his voice carrying the authority that comes from decades on the bench. "You understand that your actions endangered innocent people that day." Marcus shifts slightly, the leather of his jacket creaking. "Judge, my brother was bleeding out on the asphalt. Sometimes a man's got to make choices." His voice is gravelly, worn smooth by years of shouting over motorcycle engines and cigarette smoke. The response doesn't surprise anyone who knows Marcus's reputation. He's built his life around loyalty and brotherhood, concepts that run deeper than blood in motorcycle club culture. The Iron Wolves aren't just riders, they're family forged through shared danger and mutual protection. When one of them falls, the others drop everything to respond. Judge Caprio leans forward, studying this man who commands respect through presence alone. "Tell me about your brother, Mr. Rodriguez. Help me understand what drove you to risk so many lives that afternoon." The question catches Marcus off guard. He expected lectures about responsibility and civic duty, not genuine interest in his family dynamics. Marcus's expression softens almost imperceptibly. "Tommy's 26, been riding since he was 16. Kid looks up to me, you know? When he joined the club, I promised his mother I'd watch out for him." His voice carries the weight of promises made and kept. That day, he was rushing to get to his daughter's school play. Been planning it for weeks, talking about how he finally had something good in his life worth fighting for. The courtroom listens as Marcus reveals layers beneath the intimidating exterior. This isn't just about reckless driving. It's about a man who spent his adult life protecting others, sometimes at great personal cost. The judge recognizes something familiar in Marcus's eyes: the burden of leadership and the crushing weight of responsibility for others' well-being. "Your club, the Iron Wolves, has quite a reputation in the city," Judge Caprio observes. "Some would call it notorious." Marcus bristles slightly but maintains his composure. "We're not angels, Judge. Never claimed to be. But we look after our own and our community. When Hurricane Sandy hit 3 years back, we were the first ones out there clearing debris and checking on elderly folks. The media doesn't write stories about that. This statement reveals the complexity that often exists within motorcycle club culture. While law enforcement and popular media focus on criminal activities, many clubs also engage in charity work and community service. They operate according to their own moral code, which sometimes conflicts with legal boundaries but often serves a genuine protective function in their neighborhoods. Judge Caprio pulls out a folder and spreads several photographs across his desk. "I want you to look at something, Mr. Rodriguez." The images show the aftermath of Marcus's high-speed journey through downtown. Shattered storefront windows from his sonic boom, an elderly woman who fell while trying to get out of his path, a child's bicycle crushed against a fire hydrant where a parent had pulled their son to safety. Marcus studies each photograph carefully, his jaw tightening with each image. The judge watches his reaction, looking for signs of remorse or justification. "That woman, Mrs. Chen, is 78 years old. She broke her hip trying to avoid your motorcycle. That bicycle belonged to a 7-year-old boy who still has nightmares about the loud noise and his mother screaming." The photographs land like physical blows. Marcus has seen violence and its consequences throughout his life, but confronting the unintended victims of his protective instincts creates a different kind of pain. His hands clench and unclench as he processes the reality that his desperate attempt to save one person endangered many others. "I didn't see them," Marcus admits quietly. "When that call came through, everything else disappeared. All I could think about was getting to Tommy before he bled out." His voice cracks slightly, revealing vulnerability that his club brothers rarely witness. "Been riding for 35 years. Never hurt an innocent person, never." Judge Caprio nods, recognizing the genuine anguish in Marcus's confession. "That's what makes this so tragic, Mr. Rodriguez. Your intentions were noble, but your methods were catastrophic. Good men can make terrible choices when desperation takes the wheel." The judge shares a story from his own past about responding to his father's heart attack and the mistakes he made in his panic. This personal revelation creates an unexpected connection between the two men, showing Marcus that even judges understand the pull of family loyalty and the fear of losing someone precious. "Tell me about your leadership philosophy," Judge Caprio continues. "When you're president of a motorcycle club, men look to you for guidance. What do you teach them about handling crisis situations?" Marcus straightens, drawing on decades of hard-earned wisdom. "I teach them that strength comes from standing together, that we protect what matters, and that sometimes you gotta make the hard choice." This response opens a discussion about leadership responsibility and the ripple effects of executive decisions. As club president, Marcus's actions don't just represent his personal choices, they set examples for younger members who model their behavior on his example. The judge helps him recognize how his reckless driving could inspire similar dangerous behavior among his followers. The conversation shifts when Judge Caprio reveals additional information about that day's events. "Mr. Rodriguez, were you aware that your brother's accident occurred because he was also speeding to reach his destination on time?" Marcus looks confused, then defensive. "Tommy's a good rider. Been teaching him myself since he was a teenager. According to the police report, your brother was traveling 40 miles per hour over the speed limit when he lost control. He was trying to emulate your riding style, pushing limits the way he'd seen you do." The revelation hits Marcus like a physical blow. The very person he was rushing to save had been injured while attempting to copy his dangerous habits. This moment forces Marcus to confront a harsh truth about influence and responsibility. The men who look up to him don't just follow his explicit instructions. They absorb his attitudes about risk, authority, and acceptable behavior. His cavalier approach to traffic laws had inadvertently contributed to the accident he was desperately trying to remedy. Judge Caprio presses further. "Your club's motto is ride hard, die free. What does that mean to you? Marcus responds with the traditional interpretation about living authentically and refusing to be constrained by society's rules. But the judge challenges this philosophy, asking whether freedom should include the right to endanger others, and whether dying free is worth living recklessly. The discussion becomes deeply philosophical, examining the tension between individual liberty and collective responsibility. Marcus has built his identity around the idea that true men take risks and live on their own terms, but he's being forced to consider how this worldview affects innocent bystanders and the young men who follow his example. "Let me tell you about Tommy's daughter," Judge Caprio says, pulling out another photograph. "Her name is Sophia. She's 8 years old, and she was waiting in that school auditorium for her father to watch her perform. When the hospital called the school to explain why he wouldn't make it, she cried for 2 hours. The image shows a little girl in a white dress and angel wings, part of the school play her father never saw. Marcus stares at the photograph for a long time, seeing his own granddaughter's face reflected in Sophia's disappointed expression. Family is everything to him, but his actions had torn apart another family's special moment. That little girl doesn't understand motorcycle clubs or brotherhood," the judge continues. "She just knows her daddy got hurt and didn't come to see her sing. Your choices that day didn't just affect adults who can rationalize danger, they affected a child who was counting on her father." Marcus's tough exterior finally begins to crack. Throughout his life, he's prided himself on protecting the innocent and vulnerable, especially children. Discovering that his protective instincts had caused a child to suffer creates a crisis of identity that shakes him to his core. The judge allows this emotional weight to settle before introducing another element to the case. "Mr. Rodriguez, I've been researching your club's history. The Iron Wolves weren't always known for reckless behavior. In fact, your predecessor, William Bear Thompson, was famous for his safety consciousness. He required all members to take defensive riding courses and maintain strict rules about public behavior." This historical perspective forces Marcus to consider how his leadership has changed the club's culture. Bear Thompson had been his mentor, a man who balanced toughness with wisdom and never confused bravado with strength. Under Marcus's presidency, the club had gradually adopted more aggressive attitudes that prioritized image over substance. "Bear taught me to ride," Marcus admits. "Used to say that any fool could go fast, but it took skill to stay alive. Guess somewhere along the way I forgot that lesson." The admission represents a significant shift in his thinking, acknowledging that his current approach might not honor the man who shaped his early development. Judge Caprio seizes this opening. "What do you think Bear would say about your actions that day?" Marcus considers the question seriously, picturing his old mentor's reaction to the photographs scattered across the judge's desk. "He'd be disappointed." Bear always said a leader's job was to make everyone around him better, not to drag them down to his level. This realization creates an opportunity for genuine reflection. Marcus begins to see how his leadership style had gradually shifted from Bear's protective wisdom to a more reckless approach that prioritized dramatic gestures over thoughtful decision-making. The judge helps him understand that true strength often requires restraint rather than action. The courtroom atmosphere changes as Marcus wrestles with these revelations. His initial defiance has been replaced by genuine introspection, and the gallery watches a powerful man confront uncomfortable truths about his choices and their consequences. This transformation isn't weakness, it's the beginning of wisdom. Judge Caprio introduces one final element to complete Marcus's understanding of that day's events. "Mr. Rodriguez, I want you to meet someone." The courtroom doors open, and Mrs. Chen walks slowly forward, supported by a walker but moving with dignity. The elderly woman Marcus had inadvertently injured looks directly at him without fear or anger, just sadness. "Mrs. Chen immigrated to this country 40 years ago. the judge explains. She's a retired nurse who spent her career helping trauma victims. She understands accidents and emergencies better than most people. She wanted to meet you today. Marcus rises respectfully as the elderly woman approaches, his usual swagger replaced by genuine humility. Mrs. Chen speaks in accented but clear English. I know you were trying to help your brother. I have sons too, but when I saw you coming, I thought I was going to die. The fear was worse than the pain. Her words carry no malice, just honest description of her experience during Marcus's desperate ride through downtown. Marcus struggles to find appropriate words. Ma'am, I'm sorry. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. If I could take it back, I would. Mrs. Chen nods, studying his face carefully. I believe you. But sorry doesn't fix my hip or give me back my confidence walking alone. I see motorcycles now, and my heart starts racing. This personal confrontation forces Marcus to understand his actions' lasting psychological impact. Physical injuries heal, but trauma can persist long after broken bones mend. Mrs. Chen's ongoing fear represents a debt that can't be repaid with simple apologies or financial compensation. Judge Caprio allows this moment to resonate before addressing both parties. Mrs. Chen has agreed to participate in a restorative justice process, Mr. Rodriguez. Instead of simply punishing you, she wants to work together on preventing future incidents. She believes your influence in the motorcycle community could save other people from experiencing what she went through. This suggestion represents a different approach to justice, one focused on healing and prevention rather than punishment alone. Marcus looks surprised but intrigued by the possibility of transforming his experience into something positive. Mrs. Chen smiles slightly, recognizing his genuine remorse and willingness to make amends. The judge outlines a comprehensive plan that addresses both accountability and prevention. Marcus will complete 200 hours of community service, teaching motorcycle safety courses to young riders and working with traffic safety organizations. Additionally, he'll establish a fund to support elderly pedestrians who need mobility assistance after accidents. More importantly, Marcus commits to changing the Iron Wolves culture from within. He'll institute mandatory safety training for all members, establish strict rules about emergency responses, and create mentorship programs that emphasize responsible leadership. The club's reputation for recklessness will gradually transform into recognition for community protection and safety consciousness. Mrs. Chen agrees to work with Marcus on developing educational materials that help motorcyclists understand their impact on vulnerable pedestrians. Her nursing background and his street credibility will create powerful advocacy tools that speak to both sides of the traffic safety equation. As the hearing concludes, Marcus approaches Mrs. Chen with genuine respect. If you'll let me, I'd like to walk you to your car. Make sure you get there safely. The elderly woman accepts his offer, and together they leave the courtroom, beginning a partnership that will honor both her suffering and his commitment to change. Judge Caprio watches them go, satisfied that justice has been served in its truest form. Not through punishment that diminishes the guilty party, but through transformation that prevents future victims while healing existing wounds. The courtroom empties slowly, spectators processing what they've witnessed. A tough man learning to channel his strength toward protection rather than dominance. 3 months later, Marcus returns to court for a progress report. His appearance has changed subtly. The same leather and tattoos remain, but his posture suggests purpose rather than defiance. He presents documentation of his community service hours and reports from the safety courses he's been teaching. The Iron Wolves have established a new reputation in Providence. Instead of being known for reckless riding, they've become advocates for motorcycle safety and community protection. Young riders from across the region seek out their training programs, drawn by the club's authentic credibility and commitment to keeping everyone alive. Mrs. Chen attends the hearing, walking more confidently now with the support of a new mobility aid funded by Marcus's restitution efforts. She speaks about their collaboration on safety materials and her growing trust in the motorcycle community's commitment to protecting vulnerable road users. Judge Caprio commends both parties for their dedication to healing and prevention. Mr. Rodriguez, you've demonstrated that true leadership isn't about commanding fear or respect through dominance, but about earning trust through service and protection. Mrs. Chen, your willingness to transform trauma into advocacy has created positive change that extends far beyond this courtroom. The case concludes with Marcus receiving formal recognition for his community service contributions, but more importantly, with his genuine transformation from a man who's confused recklessness with strength into a leader who understands that real power comes from protecting others rather than proving dominance. As Marcus leaves the courthouse for the final time, he stops to thank Judge Caprio. You could have just thrown me in jail and called it justice. Instead, you helped me become the man Bear Thompson tried to teach me to be. The judge nods, satisfied that the legal system had served its highest purpose, not just punishing wrongdoing, but creating positive change that benefits everyone involved. The Iron Wolves continue their community work, with Marcus leading by example rather than intimidation. Tommy is fully recovered from his accident and now teaches children's motorcycle safety courses, sharing his experience to prevent other young riders from making dangerous choices. Sophia still performs in school plays, but now her father never misses one, having learned to balance responsibility with presence. Mrs. Chen has become an unexpected advocate for motorcycle rights, understanding that true safety comes from mutual respect and education rather than fear and segregation. Her partnership with Marcus demonstrates how former adversaries can become powerful allies when they focus on shared goals rather than past grievances. Years later, when people in Providence talk about the Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club, they speak of safety, community service, and protection rather than danger and rebellion. Marcus Rodriguez transformed not just his own life, but an entire organization's culture, proving that even the toughest men can learn to channel their strength toward building rather than breaking, healing rather than harming, and leading through love rather than fear.